Shalom Chaverim. I've gotten in the habit of waiting to talk until we get some more people listening, even though this will become a podcast. So we want to wait for a few more people. Somebody was here, but they left. I understand because I didn't start saying anything. Shalom Chaverim. I begin with, it's Wednesday night again. How did it get here so fast? It certainly did. Well, the weather here was a little warmer than yesterday. Yesterday was brutally cold. In fact, yesterday reminded me of winter, which isn't surprising because we're starting to close in on winter, but usually November is a little more mild than yesterday. November was more like today. And the House of Representatives is going to vote on opening up the government. They have a proposal, they're debating it, and I'm not going to talk about that. Good evening. I entitled this, Hate is a Virus. And I would like each of us to think of a teaching from your own religion. And we can do it either way, or both ways. Turn the other cheek. Do not do unto others. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If a person asks for your shirt, give him your cloak. Lots of quotes like that. So, from your own religious practice, what quotes do you have about not hating, accepting other human beings as created in God's image? And if you can think of not a religion, that your religion teaches hate, please give me the passage and the quote. Let's look at it both ways. Okay? Christianity, and there are different branches. I don't know all of them. I just know the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and Jesus' teachings. And I'm very familiar with the Roman Catholic Church, the Episcopal, the Anglican, the Methodist, the Unitarians, Quakers. But there are a lot of evangelical groups that I haven't had contact with. Somebody just asked the Talmud. The Talmud is not Jewish law. It's discussion and debate that took place in the academy in Babylon. Think of being in school and you have different study groups in the same class. And in the end, you compare notes. Be very different. And, Babylon is present-day Iran. Yeah, we want to talk a bit about anti-Semitism because our topic is about hate and how it is a virus in the brain. The Talmud is the recordings of the rabbis' discussions. It's not Jewish law, and it's not binding. However, because it was intense study over so many years, analyzing words, punctuation, choice of letters, placement, there's so much great discussion in the Talmud that we don't want to overlook it. In fact, we want to study it and see what the Talmud has to say. But again, I stress, it's not Jewish law, and no one is bound by it. It's academic study. As if you had different study groups comparing notes. And some of them would be very good, and somebody would write these stupid remarks in the notes, or wanted to be funny, or change something, and then the notes really would be worthless for studying biochemistry or physics or neurology. whatever you might be studying. Explain how modern society is Edom, the Edomites. Yeah, it's a funny question, pro-Palestine, pro-Palestine, or pro-Israel. I'm pro both. I think both have to recognize the right of the other to exist legitimately. And then we can have commerce. Okay? So, what do you know about hate? And what does your religion say about hating? I'm waiting for some input. Explain how modern society plays into it. Someone said about the prophecy of Edom, there's a lot of literature out there that if we look at it, we might draw some conclusions about it being a prediction. And as we know, just recently, the rapture was supposed to take place. And the individuals involved said there was a miscalculation. But when they redid the calculation, that date passed. And so we want to be careful when we look at people predicting. And often, predictions are worded in such a way that a later generation or group will say, oh, this is what's happening, or this is what's predicting. And centuries go by, and it doesn't happen, and then someone else comes along and says, oh, this is what it's predicting. It's because the language is so vague, and if the end of the universe as we know it, the end of the earth as we know it, has been predicted over and over again. The rapture has been predicted over and over again. The end of time, all these things have been predicted. You and I are talking to each other. Okay? So we just want to be careful about that. So first of all, is that clear about the Talmud? It's discussion, and then someone takes notes. And sometimes it's excellent. And I remember acid rain was going to destroy the planet. It didn't. I remember running out of... I remember the nuclear war, a nuclear rain. I remember lots of things. None of them ever happened. Then a funny question. When was the last time I had an honest day's work? I retired from the VA after 40 years, and I spent 40 years doing honest work with our veterans in psychiatry. And I still see a few patients, but I'm 80. I'm slowing down. My website's rabbionnthego.com. I've done innumerable interfaith weddings, interdenominational weddings. And so, to answer your question, go to the YouTube channel, The Rabbi and I, and go to my website. And there's plenty of work there. My favorite M&Ms. M&Ms are my favorite candy. Not hearing any honest work. Tell me, what do you mean by honest work? Being a therapist isn't honest work. I put myself through college as an automobile mechanic. And is that honest work? And I was working for a Saab dealer. And I took some time off from seminary and working for Gaston Andre Saab and Alfa Romeo. And at one point they said to me, you're just doing tires and grease and stuff like that. Do you want us to send, you want us to send you to Saab school to become a Saab mechanic? I was offered that. Is that what you mean by honest work? The fact that I chose to become a rabbi instead of a Saab mechanic? And I bring it up because I often think about it. I'd have a very different retirement. It would be a lot better. Worth a lot more money than what I'm doing now. Hate is a brain virus. Discuss different religions. What I would like is I'd like you to tell me the religions you belong to, because I do not know of any religion that teaches you to hate and murder. Okay? Self-defense, that's understandable. When someone's attacked, when someone's going to do physical harm to someone else, or someone's invading your country, or someone's blowing up your country. I can understand that. However, when we're talking about hate, I'm open. I know the Jewish Christian teachings, the Muslim teaching, the Buddhist teaching, and they all talk about human beings created in God's image, in treating each other with respect and not hating for actually any reason. Dislike, perhaps, not wanting to be around certain people. But I'm waiting for... In fact, I don't have an opinion on Albanians. I don't know that much about Albania. Okay, matzah fry, fried matzah. So that's... So I'm just thinking. Let me tell you a story. It's not an incident. It's true. I was with one of my patients, and actually I was in a group. We're doing one of the groups in substance abuse, and one of my black patients, we're talking about hate and discrimination. He had a great story, and I want to repeat that story for us. He doesn't remember if it was 6, 7, or 8, 5. He had trouble remembering, but his family lived next door to a white family, and they had a little boy his age. And they used to play in the yards together and go back and forth. They each had sets of swings, and they would play. And one day his little white friend said to him, "My daddy said that a Negro family is moving into our neighborhood." And the two little kids looked at each other. Now, my patient said he didn't remember his friend saying another black family. He used the word Negro. Another Negro family. But he could have said that, and his little 8-year-old, 7-year-old friend wouldn't have remembered. So these two little boys were discussing what's a Negro. And what difference does it make if a Negro moves into the neighborhood? And that has stuck with me because it stuck with my patient, that we have to learn to hate. We have to be taught that they are the enemy, they're the cause, they have all the money, they own all the banks, they own all the newspapers, they control the earth, they have a secret laser on the dark side of the moon. You have to give people reasons to hate. They're going to destroy our way of life. They're going to make us live like them. Because here is my patient and his friend not understanding and discussing. Neither one realized that one of them was a Negro. Evidently, the white boy's family never paid attention to it, never made a big deal out of it. And the father may have just said it in passing. My patient had no context other than there was no hate involved, and he always played with this little kid, and he went over and had dinner with the family, and there was nothing going on. Somebody just said to co-host right now, yes, the answer is yes. Email me at rabbiblock@hotmail.com. We'll meet in my Zoom room, and we'll co-host next Wednesday night. It's a guarantee. All you have to do is contact me, and we'll set it up. I'm not quite sure how to do it, but we'll come up with what we want to present and how we're going to talk with each other so that we're not talking over each other. But yes, definitely, whoever said that, and any of you, I guarantee you'll co-host with me. Rabbi Block at Hotmail. Yes, I lived in Israel, 68, 69, 70. Okay? And I had a chance and decided I'm an American and my religion is Judaism. And so I came back to the United States. I did not become an Israeli citizen. And I decided, if you weren't Jewish, what religion would you pick? Either Roman Catholicism or Islam. To answer whoever asked that question, if in terms of, I guess, all things being equal or a blank slate, I don't know what context we could put it in, but it's a good question. But those would be the two religions that I would gravitate to and look at. And the history of State of Israel is a fascinating history. To talk at stolen land, it was a period of colonialism. There's no such country as Lebanon. There's no such country as Jordan. So that's stolen land as well. There was a period of colonialism when Africa, when European nations carved up and claimed or created. And so, really not stolen land. It's the history of our country. Here in America, Maryland, there were inhabitants here, and we killed them, massacred them, gave them diseases. We stole their land. Just a way to say it, but saying it is to bring up hate. Saying it is to create this idea of us and them. Let's take a look at what is and say colonialism wasn't right, and we're not going to do it again. Yet, somehow it keeps happening. People keep invading other countries. Russia invading Ukraine, a sovereign nation, and then want peace if they can have a piece of Ukraine. I can't imagine how we would feel if Mexico or Canada invaded the United States. Mexico said, we want Texas back. Canada says, we want the whole northern tier back. And they started a war over it. They would attack us. Sovereign country. That's what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. How do you feel about Russia was not legitimately asking about joining NATO. They wanted to join NATO to subvert it. Weren't interested in cooperation. They didn't want to fill the rules. And their invasion of Ukraine is proving that. The person who asked me about religion, why would I choose Roman Catholicism over Islam? How would I weigh the pros and cons, the pluses and minuses? Great question. I'm going to have to give it some thought because you're the first person to ask me what religion would I gravitate towards if it wasn't Judaism. And I would have to give that some thought. But those would be my... Someone just asked why we wear yarmulkes, a kippah in Hebrew, a skull cap. It's a sign of respect in Eastern religions. In the Middle East, where Judaism grew up, you covered your head as a sign of respect. In the Western world, you uncover your head. So when you walk into a church, you would take your hat off as a sign of respect. I think that's a really neat question because two different cultures have two different acts for the same thing. How do I show my respect? Now, many of you may be too young to remember if you were wearing a hat and you walked by a woman, you would tip your hat. It's a sign of respect, an acknowledgement in the presence of, that was the culture at the time. And you wouldn't wear a hat indoors. Go into a big box store, go into a restaurant, all the guys are wearing hats. That's cultural. Nothing specifically religious about it. And it's also a reminder. It reminds the wearer that you're in God's presence. And you should have respect for other human beings, created in God's image. And that you're always in God's presence. So it's a reminder. Many people wear a cross or a crucifix. People wear the Star of David. There's different religious symbols. And I find it fascinating that often the people that wear these religions are not following the teachings. It's an embarrassment. Here you're wearing an outward symbol that says, I accept the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. I accept the teachings in Judaism. All these things. And yet you watch their behavior, they promote hate, you listen to the way they talk and they're disrespectful. Yes, I think a woman's dress as well. If you look back at Islam, which grew up on the Arabian Peninsula, and you look at the clothing that was deemed respectful, and depending on which particular country or tribe, you would find women's clothing going from being fully covered to just a head covering. Again, all these things are cultural. It's a way of showing respect. And as I mentioned, yes, each religion, has, there are 88 names for Allah in Islam, 92 in Judaism. I don't trust my memory anymore for names. Haracham, the merciful one, the loving one. There's lots of names. And I keep coming back to 88 and 90 something, but don't trust my memory. We're going to have to, someone should look that up online while I'm talking and be able to tell me how many names for God are there in Islam and in Judaism. Okay? So when there is a mystery within the Trinity of 3 in 1, of understanding the manifestations of God. Now that I'm talking about that, I think I'd gravitate towards Islam. I think you're right. I think I would have trouble with the mystery of the Trinity, with the 3 in 1 and the attributes and the way they work. I would find Allah, the one, the merciful one, praise be his name, to be. So to answer the person that asked, if I wasn't Jewish or been brought up in it, if it wasn't my way to understand the one, to understand God, and all religions were out there, and I said, I'm going to choose, I would choose Islam. I hope that helps you. We're talking about the oral tradition. Is that what you'd like me to answer? And in Judaism, we have sects or denominations. The easiest way to think of Judaism is Orthodox and non-Orthodox. And then within each of those groups, there are many Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, Aleph, Hasidic, Lubavitcher, Satmar. And I am a Reform. I'm a Reform rabbi, progressive, if you like. It's hard to find a term. What it means is non-Orthodox. I believe that the Torah is truth, and it's not true. It contains allegory. It contains stories, lots of material by people who had experiences with the divine. I do not believe that the Torah, God dictated it to anyone, let alone in King James English. Forget that. That's why I say the Torah is truth, and it's not true. And we have to ferret out the teachings. And it helps us to study Talmud. It helps us to study how other people have come to understand. So far, no one has quoted a religion that promotes hate, destruction. And I'm not surprised. Epstein, Weinstein, and Soros, we have free will, and we can make choices as human beings. Sometimes we make good choices, sometimes we make neutral choices, sometimes we make very bad choices. Both Judaism and Islam teach within each of us is there is a good inclination and a bad inclination, and they're in tension with each other. Both religions teach we can't get rid of either. We as human beings have to acknowledge that there's a jihad. That's what jihad means. Inside of us, a war between the good and bad inclinations. This is the jihad. It's not about killing people of another religion. It's not about conquering territory. It's about conquering the self. About getting the two. Yes, I believe Israel and Palestine can live side by side if people want it. If they don't want it, it'll never happen. And so and sometimes the evil inclination makes really bad choices that we can't undo. And the good inclination can never make enough good choices. So that's not the problem. The bad inclination seems to be constantly pulling us towards things that are self-destructive. Nothing wrong with a beer. Nothing wrong with a good bourbon. There's lots of things wrong with cocaine, heroin, mollies. They destroy the body, the mind, our ability to keep the balance. Chemicals are not a good idea. Unless, of course, with surgery or our dentist is pulling teeth. There's an appropriate place. But just because I'm unhappy with my partner or I lost my job, we have to really be careful, because at that moment's the bad inclination. And that's why hate is a virus. Because once it enters the brain, it starts to feed the bad inclination. And as any disease, we start doing things that are self-destructive and destructive to society. Now, we'll talk about Kabbalah, which means Jewish mysticism, a whole branch of Judaism. Kabbalah is attaining the one in a method or system that's not mainstream Judaism. And we call that mysticism. And it has a lot of good things to say about it. There's a lot to learn. I want us to start thinking and paying attention, particularly here on TikTok, because there are a lot of haters. There are a lot of people out there that want to feed us all kinds of things. And they'll exaggerate, they'll lie, they'll make up things to get us to join them in hating this other group. No, I do not believe that 700,000 people migrated out of Egypt under Moses and headed towards the land of the Philistines, Palestine, Judea, Israel. A small group did that. But again, remember what I said. We're dealing with truth, and it's not true. So that's a really neat discussion to be able to sort that out. What is the truth? What are we talking about? Because we don't want to get bogged down in, did it really happen? Because we're dealing with metaphor. We're dealing with hyperbole. We're dealing with understanding the one to find out what's the truth about human beings. How do we treat each other? I think supremacy is ultimately the problem to religion. To religion, for religion? I'm not sure. Yeah, how do you interpret the truth in Scripture? Send me an email. It's worthy of study. It's a process. And you'll figure it out. Once you look at Old Testament, New Testament, Hebrew Scripture, Greek Scripture, and say to yourself, I'm not going to worry about the veracity, the accuracy of whether Jesus came in on a donkey, a mule, or a horse. No. What is the truth that this story is teaching me? What is it that I'm supposed to follow? And we don't want to get bogged down, because otherwise we'll be wasting our time trying to prove the accuracy or veracity of events. Well, maybe that'll be our topic next time. We're coming to an end of our time together. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And come on, book sales, we're behind. How to Be Jewish in 30 Seconds. Come on, pick it up. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, your local bookstore. The cartoons alone are worth the price of the book. Thank you, and If you're interested in a more depth in discussion, rabbiblock@hotmail.com. I'm retired. We can set up some times to meet in my Zoom room. I'll be glad to discuss with you. Lila Tov.